Hey, so I was looking for some content for this week, and I decided to do 5 days of inspiring stories to make you think. And so I'm going to read this story to you, and before I start I just want to say I really like this story. I think it has so much meaning. The topic is laziness won't get you anywhere, but it's about so much more than that. So I'm going to read the story to you, and then I'm going to go through the points that I took from it. This is just my perspective on it. I'm going to go through what I took from it, and I really think it's going to help you, okay? And so in ancient times there was a king who had his men place a boulder in the middle of the road, okay? And then he went and waited in some bushes to see if anyone would come along and remove it, okay? And there were people that he had some wealthy people, some wealthy merchants that came across the boulder, and they just walked around it, okay? There were even people that complained to the king about this boulder, this obstacle being in the road, and how the roads needed to be clear, but they didn't try to help either. Then this peasant came along carrying some vegetables, and he decided to put his burden down. The story said he laid down his burden and tried to push the stone away. And after a lot of pushing and straining, the boulder finally moved, and he was able to roll it away from the road. And so when the boulder had been removed, he noticed that there was a purse laying where the boulder had been. And inside the purse there were some gold coins and a note from the king that said, "This is for whoever removes the boulder." And so I just want to go through, there was so much I took from that story. I just want to go through some of the key points I took. The first one is unlikely people can do extraordinary things. Now, if you think for a minute, would you think that a peasant would be the number one choice for removing a boulder off the road? No, probably not. And what I like about this peasant is, like, when I first read this story, I thought that this peasant was just somebody nice, doing a nice thing, solving a problem. Even though he did not take part in creating the problem, he didn't put the boulder there. The story said the king had his men put the boulder there, but he came across the boulder. And what I love about this peasant is he saw something that other people didn't. Everybody else saw this boulder as this big obstacle, this hindrance that was either to be ignored, walked around, or even complained about, but this peasant had something special about him. And I really kind of like connect with this peasant, because he saw, instead of seeing the boulder as an obstacle, he saw it as an opportunity, okay? I think when I first read this story, I thought that this peasant was just a really, like, a saint who just decided to move the boulder out of the way and carry on his life. He would pick up his vegetables and continue on. Firstly, the fact that he would lay down his vegetables and his food in the first place says something about him. Because if you think about it, a peasant, that's basically a poor person. And in ancient times, you know, his vegetables, that could be all he's eating for the week. But the fact that he was willing to put his food down, somebody else could come along and steal it when he's not looking, but the fact that he was willing to put down what he was carrying, take that however you want, the fact that he was willing to put down whatever he was carrying to respond to this obstacle says something about him. He could have said, "Oh, you know what, if I wasn't carrying something, I would stop and help. You know, if my hands weren't so full, I could help. Oh, what a shame," and be on his way. But there was something about this peasant that he was like, you know what, I can move this. And I feel like, you know, because can you just imagine this peasant moving this great big huge boulder, okay? And I bet there were other people on the road maybe thinking, looking at him thinking, what is this peasant doing? Because if you're a peasant, I mean, imagine they're probably not very strong. They probably don't get to eat a lot, right? What is this peasant doing, thinking that he can move this huge boulder? And it just kind of like reminds me of when sometimes people go after things that are so much bigger than them. Sometimes you have those people that are kind of looking at you thinking, what on earth are you doing? You clearly cannot do this. You are not strong enough to do this. This is too big for you. And I'm not just talking about boulders here, and this story is not just about a peasant that removed a boulder. It can be anybody. It can be any unlikely person going after something that you wouldn't think they could do. You wouldn't think that a peasant would be able to move a boulder. And there were probably people on the road looking at him, probably not offering him any help, just maybe laughing at him, maybe criticizing him, maybe saying, hey, it's not worth it, go back, you should quit. There's something about this peasant, the story said, he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Do you not think that he could, I mean, the story doesn't say that people were there looking at him, but I'm just kind of like trying to get into the story a little bit and just trying to imagine what it might have been like. Can you imagine that he could probably hear all of that? You know, when we're going after stuff, when people, maybe you go after something, maybe you have a big goal, and the voices of other people kind of get to you, and so you stop. This peasant, I think he knew that if he moved, there's something special about him. I think he knew that if he moved this obstacle, his life would never be the same again. I really think that the peasant knew that if he overcame this obstacle, if he was successful in moving this huge thing that was in front of him, it would change his life forever. I don't think he was just being a martyr. I don't think he was just being selfless. I think something in him was telling him, hey, if you move this thing, it's going to change your life, okay? Like, he saw the opportunity when everybody else just saw the obstacle, okay? And I relate to him. I relate to unlikely people, the underdogs, the people that go after things that are so big and so ridiculous to other people, and the people that are not usually the ones that are favourites to win. That, you know, I really connect with this person. He's really, like, I really like him. Okay, so unlikely people can do extraordinary things. You know, he was the one. He moved the boulder. The king's men, they ignored it. The wealthy men ignored it. Other people were complaining about it. And then here comes this peasant with the nerve to think that he can move something so big. Okay? Which, this story is not even about a boulder. It's just about, you know, perseverance, pushing and pushing and pushing, and then eventually it's gonna move. It may hurt. I'm sure it hurt him. I'm sure the peasant, I'm sure he felt pain. I'm sure that he was laughed at. I'm sure that maybe times he even doubted himself if he could move it. But in the end, I mean, he could have been pushing for hours. The story doesn't say. I mean, I just wrote down in my notebook what I read on the story, but I can imagine it probably wasn't just one push and then it rolled away. I can imagine that it was a lot of effort. He may have even got cut. He may have even been bleeding. He may have fell down on his face a couple of times, but he didn't give up. And that's the whole point of the story, okay? You can be the unlikely person. You can be the underdog. You can be the one that no one thinks is going to win, but that doesn't matter. If you push and push and push, that boulder, that huge boulder that's in front of you, whatever it is, that big business that you're trying to build, that big house that you're trying to build, and you can't see it yet, but you know if you keep pushing, it's going to happen, okay? So that was something that I really took, okay? Unlikely people can do extraordinary things. And I think he knew that if he moved that boulder, it would change his life, because he found the gold coins. Who needs gold coins more than someone that's probably struggling to eat? So, you know, he knew, and I really love that. The second thing I took, that was not all I took, looks can be deceiving. Sometimes opportunities look like obstacles. Like I said, where everybody else saw the obstacle, he saw the opportunity. He knew if he moved the obstacle, it would change his life, okay? Even though there were probably people around him laughing at him saying, you'll never move it, you'll never do that. I bet they soon shut up when the boulder started moving though, didn't they? The fact that he was willing to lay down what he was carrying, so he was willing to give up his food to potentially have it stolen when his back was turned. I mean, like I said, a peasant probably needs all the food he can get, but he was willing to put that down, sacrifice what he was carrying to go after something much greater, okay? And, you know, yeah, he could have made excuses. I'm not strong enough. My hands are full. People might laugh at me, okay? And so I hope you got some value from that story. It really, really touched me. I feel like there's like big things that like I want to go for. If you asked people that knew me, you know, maybe even today or from in the past, do you think that she can do this? I bet they would all say no. But yeah, well, I'm going to keep this story because I feel like at some point I'm going to need to come back to it. Just know that even if you are an unlikely person, maybe there's a big boulder in front of you that you need to move. You can move it. There's nothing so strong that without persistence you can't move it. And so I hope that was helpful to you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.